call this regular May agenda meeting to order. Before we get started with anybody, I don't want to hold John up because he's got to get back to Harrisburg. So John's here this evening to discuss our investment that we have with them, $24 million PFM. And there's been some, you can go to the podium, John. There's been some new changes in the way you could invest your money. I don't know if some of you remember, years ago, myself and a couple other council people, the manager and solicitor, met with Robin Weissman, who was at that time the in charge of the Secretary of Treasury, because we always felt that we couldn't invest our money properly because of the restrictions they had on the boroughs. So there's been a new law change that goes into effect May, which John will explain to you, which gives us a little bit more flexibility to invest our money without barely any more risk. It just opens up the door to more avenues to invest. It's a little bit better than the way it was, so we asked John to come in to see if he could help us with our allocations to try to get us more interest at the end of the year. So John, I want to turn it over to you, and I'm sure Council's interested to see what you have for us.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Thanks for the invitation to come and talk with you tonight. It is good news. The last time Pennsylvania changed its investment codes was back in the 1970s. So it's a long time coming. And we're going to talk about the changes and what they mean and the kinds of new investments that Pennsylvania governments will be able to invest in once the law becomes effective. Before we even do that, I want to mention that those securities are of the type that have been permitted in most other states around the country for years, if not decades. So there's nothing new. I'll say new investments probably a lot, but they're not really new. Some of them are centuries old in the way that they work, and they've been continuously offered since. So they're new for us, but they're not new investments. Before we get to those, I wanted to give you a quick update on the status of the portfolio, which we continue to manage each and every day under the existing Borough Code and what's permitted there, which, as you know, is a very conservative set of investments. After that, I'll tell you about the new Act 10 and then wrap up with what a new portfolio or portfolio that would include these new securities might look like, and what the yield differences would be, and the like. So let's talk about the current portfolio. In the handout that I had for you, if you go behind the first tab, you'll see some pie charts and tables of numbers and the like. We always show you these. Usually there's a few other pages we go through before we get to them. I don't want to sort of cut to the chase tonight with those. On the bottom left-hand side, you see the portfolio composition, the kinds of securities that are owned at March 31st, U.S. Treasury securities, Ginnie Mae mortgages, some federal agency securities, and a little bit of cash left over in the Pliget class investment portfolio. The allocations there are very similar to where they were at the end of December, when you may have looked at this information. We've made some new investments, but we've basically reinvested into the same sectors that we had before for the fund. If you go to the next page, you'll see the way that the maturities broke down. Your portfolio invests from overnight investments out to 5-year investments. So the allocation that we had a very little bit in overnight. It was called the Pliget class there. And you can see in the blue bars the percentage that was allocated to each of the yearly bands as we go out further. So there were some changes there in the first quarter. The biggest ones to point out to you is we took some of the under 6-month money and moved that out further. You can see an increase in the 4 to 5 year band went up to 12% from 8%. And we extended some of the mortgage securities a little bit in the 6 to 12 month area where it went from 15 to 17. So for the first quarter of 2016, there was a lot of market turmoil. I'll switch to the next page here, page number 5. And that market turmoil, if you were paying attention to the stock market, you see big declines in the first half through the middle of February, and then the market came back, through the end of March. But in the fixed income or bond investments, the most important thing we saw was a decline of interest rates. Now, when interest rates decline, the prices of the bonds themselves go up, and you get to report better total returns. And the longer your investment portfolio was, typically the higher the return you realized would be. So for your portfolio with its 0 to 5 year strategy, it returned just shy of 1.2% for the quarter. That's not an annualized number, that's just for the quarter, making it one of the best quarters that we've seen in a long time.
You said that was 4 to 5 years? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to... 0 to 5 years, sorry. Okay.
0 to 5 years is the strategy.
Right.
So the portfolio holds investments that have maturities anywhere from overnight, or 0, right out to 5 years.
So that's a combination of all the numbers.
That's right.
Under the...
Yep. That's right. The one thing that detracted from performance, because you can see our return there is very slightly behind the index that we compare it to, was that mortgage securities, when interest rates go down, you can think about your own mortgage, your experience with mortgages, when interest rates go down, people think about refinancing. When you think about refinancing, that's bad for the value of mortgage securities. Good for us as homeowners to be able to do it, but the value of a mortgage goes down. So that pulled away from some of the good performance we saw a little bit. As you look out long-term all the way back to inception, which these days, back to March 31st, 2009, beating the benchmark, those are average annual returns, so multiply that by the number of years. So that's a very short version of what happened in the quarter for the portfolio. I expected you might want to talk more about the new law, so I kept that short.
I just have one question before we move on to the new law. And I might be reading it wrong, or it might mean very little to us, but the net cash flow during 1Q16, that's 342,000, 901,000, and that's a negative, right?
That's right. So the borough withdrew $342,000 from the portfolio.
Okay, so that's basically from our returns from last year. Okay.
You read it exactly right.
Sorry.
All right. Turning ahead a little bit, I'll give you some background on Act 10. This was the 10th bill that the governor signed this year. He signed it on March 25th, as we said. A lot of folks think that the only reason to have a new investment bill was to get better investment returns. The truth was, that's only a part of it. I'd like to have you think of it a little bit like the old iceberg, right? You see 10%, 90% under the water. Low rates are the 10% that you can see. The problem was changes in the marketplace because of the way banks have to do their business, the way mutual funds are changing the way they do their businesses, and the credit crisis that's almost 10 years ago now. The availability of the kinds of securities that governments have been able to buy, it seems like forever, are decreasing and decreasing, making it harder and harder to manage money for governments, coast to coast, not just here in Pennsylvania. So there's been a dwindling supply of the kinds of investments that you've been permitted to buy previously. The banking regulation changes. The codes in Pennsylvania are different, as you may know, for schools, for boroughs, for townships, for counties, for cities, for authorities. That inconsistency has led to some problems. This act, we think, will help to solve that. And again, most other states around the country have already been able to buy the kinds of investments we're going to talk about here. So Act 10 enables or gives permission for some new things, but it doesn't require them. So there's no requirement that governments have to make changes, but a new permission gives you some additional opportunities. Act 10 also has some very important safeguards because if you're going to introduce new securities, it's important to do so safely and to make sure that the credit quality and the maturity guidelines are appropriate for government money. Because as you all know, it's the people's money. So, Act 10, it's been in the works for a while. It started off as Senate Bill 1207 in the last legislative session, kind of ran out of time. It was reintroduced as House Bill 1296 in June of 2015 by Representative Kate Harper from Montgomery County. It mirrored a lot of what 1207 did, and it amended an old law that's been on the books for some time that allowed cities, a couple of different classes of cities, to buy commercial paper. The amendment said all government entities in Pennsylvania can buy, the law would apply to all of them, and then it added new securities. So oftentimes, as you know, it's easier to amend an existing law than to create something new. So this was all done as an amendment. There's tremendous support. Bristol Borough, and talking with then Secretary Weissman, local representatives, was part of that. The House passed the bill 190-7. The Senate 47-0. I had to go back to the House for a concurrence vote because the Senate changed the title, 187-3, and the governor signed it a few days later. All of the local government associations, including the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs, lent their very strong support to passing the bill. They were involved in its creation, what's involved, what's included, and worked very hard to see that it would pass. So it becomes effective here toward the end of this month, on May 24th. If you look on the next page, you'll see some of the changes in a table or table or chart there, page 9. We put boroughs at the top. So the things with check marks are the kind of investments that are already permitted. Treasuries, agencies, some bank vehicles, general obligation debt from other municipalities, money market funds, local government investment pools. So Act 10 adds commercial paper, bankers' acceptances, and negotiable CDs. We're going to talk about what those things are, because they're, in a sense, foreign terms for us here in Pennsylvania. On page 10, a short definition for commercial paper, followed by bankers' acceptances and certificates of deposit. The key for all of these three new things is really that they're issued by corporations or banks. The commercial paper could be either the bankers' acceptances and the CDs or banks. So what matters most is the credit worthiness of the bank or the corporation that issues it. So you want to be sure that it's the biggest, best, soundest corporations and banks that issue these types of securities. So commercial paper, well, all of these have been used for many, many, many years all around the country. If any of you have ever owned a money market mutual fund called a prime fund, you've had all these securities yourself in that account. Commercial paper is very high quality, very short term. 9 months is the maximum, and according to Pennsylvania's law, it has to have the highest credit ratings by two of the credit rating agencies. Bankers' acceptances, maximum of 180 days, only 6 months. Again, maximum ratings by only by two of the credit rating agencies. Negotiable CDs are a little bit different. You all know what certificates of deposit are. Many of you may own one on your own. The negotiable part means they can trade like securities, like bonds. So rather than buy it and hold it until that maturity, you can sell it in a day or a month or in a year, of your choosing. And the last one that we put on the list here for page 11, there were some broadening permissions related to federal agency securities. Agencies used to be limited to 13 months maturity, and that limit has gone away. So you could buy an agency security just like a treasury out to as long as 30 years according to the law, your investment policy limits you to 5 years currently here. So talking about what they are may not be as important as talking about the safety. So the safety provisions, we talk a little bit about those on page 12. And these are really the most important. How do we make sure that the public's money is invested wisely and safely? The law itself has some of those provisions in it so that governments aren't left to wonder, what determines safety. The federal agencies have to be rated at least A or better by 2 rating agencies. The repurchase agreements have strong collateral behind them. The commercial paper and the banker's acceptances and the negotiable CDs we already talked about, the level of credit ratings that are required for them, and the very short-term nature. So if you think about big companies like General Electric or JP Morgan, these are kind of places that you can be pretty sure they're going to be around in 6 months or 9 months for the commercial paper that they would issue. On page 13, we said it's not all about yield, but it wouldn't be fair to not talk about yield somewhat. Here's the yields for under 1 year for these newer securities. The blue lines at the bottom are the Treasury and agencies that you could have invested in or can invest in currently. At the end of the month, the green dashed lines above them represent the current yields on commercial paper or the negotiable CDs. So you can see they're quite a bit higher. But they're not high like long-term bonds, they're not high like stocks, and they're not high like the things you'd have in your pension fund. So it's just a kind of increment higher to make a little bit more interest or yield for the borough. So let me turn forward a little bit to a sample of what a portfolio would look like and what the yields would look like, and compare it to what you have now. As I do that, I want to let you know that at PFM, these are not new securities for us. Our business is one that manages funds from coast to coast, from north to south. PFM today manages or advises on over $100 billion of securities, and most of those are high quality, fixed income securities, just like the kind of things we've been talking about. And we've been doing that for over 30 years. And we have billions of dollars invested in the kinds of investments that we're talking about here. So there's a time-tested, disciplined process to evaluate the securities, to make the decisions, to decide if you're going to buy them or sell them, and when. One key thing about that is we operate with an approved list of issuers. So if we would propose to you, we're going to put a new name, a new issuer in one of your accounts. That's passed all of our tests first. And a portfolio manager who manages an account can't buy something just because he thinks it's a good idea. It's got to be on the approved list. And it's much easier to get off the list than it is to get on, just the way you'd like it, I think. So the portfolio, it's important to say, your investment policy, first, already anticipated and will allow these investments. Number 9, at the bottom of page 15, says, and any other investments expressly permitted, and I'm sort of jumping forward, and other future laws that supersede or supplement the Borough Code. And Act 10 of 2016 would be a supplement in our view. So you have the ability now, without any changes, to go ahead and invest in these upon the effective date. So the next page shows you specifically for your 0 to 5 year portfolio, a couple of places where we can show you today's yields, or a couple days ago yields, for the securities that would now be permitted. Still, the blue line at the bottom, that's your treasuries and agencies. Now the agency line can go past 13 months, so it can go out to the 5-year mark. So that's good, because the agencies pay a little bit more than the treasuries. But let's go further. Let's say the little squares, CDs, negotiable CDs, will pay at 12 months, they pay about 1%. A Treasury at 12 months pays, about 60 or 0.6%. So we go up by about 0.4%.
So the squares and the green diamonds are what are now permissible in a projection of what we would have earned if we were actually investing in those?
If you bought one of those today, that would be the yield. Yeah. So let's say you bought the 24-month negotiable CD. So find 24 and go up, it's about 135 or so. Yeah. And we can't buy those today. So we'd buy a Treasury at the 2-year mark. So we would make, closer to 0.75.
Is it safe to say that they are slightly riskier? I mean, since they were not allowed before?
It's safe to say that, sure. The difference is that the securities that were permitted before either had the explicit backing of the federal government or their implicit backing.
John,
They say
why don't
we'll
you
strongly support those securities.
why don't you explain to Greg, on a scale of 1 to 10, when we talked about this, our risk may have been a 1, what it would be now?
It's more like a 1.1 or a 1.2. Yeah, the
Not
key.
doing anything that's,
I say the key is, if we were talking about a pension fund from what you have now, you'd go from 1 to 8, 1% to 8%, something like that. So we're really talking about a very small increment of increase.
and a very small increase, but it's an increase.
Yeah,
We're not saying we're going to go from 2% to making 10%.
Sure.
But anything's better than nothing.
right.
So again,
I was just going to say the same thing. I mean, the increase on the chart, it looks like it's a lot, but it's only,
It's very
another
minimal.
percent, right?
We're even less. Some of the things that are on the chart you can do now and actually hold in the portfolio. The green diamonds are Ginnie Mae mortgage-backed securities. You've got some of those in your current portfolio. About 13% of the portfolio is in Ginnie Mae's. So you're getting some of that today. And that's going to, if we didn't do that, you'd see a bigger jump in yield with new securities, but since you have them, it'll look like a smaller increase.
How about some mortgage swaps? Can we start doing them?
Swaps?
I was like, kidding. That's how we got in trouble with the mortgage
Yeah,
swap.
no swaps.
Yeah.
No swap. So if you go down to page 17, bunch of pie charts on that page. On the left-hand side would be a sample for a new portfolio. And the key that I think I'd point out to you is there's more slices in that pie. If you look to the right, that's your current portfolio, fewer slices, great dependence on the federal government for the securities. On the left, we mix things up a bit more and diversify the portfolio. And the other thing about these securities is they oftentimes react differently to ups and downs in the markets, and that lends some stability and some safety to the portfolio too. You go down to the bottom pies, and that's the credit quality. You're looking at the right one, it's AA+. That's Standard & Poor's rating for the federal government. So any government-related security nowadays has a AA+ rating on it. Moving to the left, you've got about 3/4 with that rating. Think of it as the highest rating. The government's not AAA rated anymore. The A+ rating, that's the 10%, that's the highest short-term rating. So in this sample, it's really 85% that has the highest rating. A and AA- are the things that would be a slightly lower quality than what you have now. And if you go to page 18, that's where I'll wrap up for you with the maturity distribution. It's a little tough to see this one on the bottom of the page. We've reproduced the maturity breakdown, the 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3 year stuff on the bottom, and then shown the current portfolio versus the new as it would look if we were to go out and buy these kind of things today. So it moves around a little bit in terms of how much is in each of those maturity buckets, but you also see new colors or new types of securities moving in to the mix. One of the big advantages on the short end is that any short-term securities could be in commercial paper, which pays a lot more than a short-term treasury or agency security these days. So that's a boost. And we don't have to be as long to get those yields. Now, the portfolio we put together here, when you boil it all down, this is the little table at the top of the page, has the same duration and maturity, so it would be exposed to interest rate risks generally up and down in the same way, but it has a yield that's about 0.3% higher. So that's about $70,000 to $75,000 more, trying to translate that into earnings on an annual basis. So it's not a huge difference. It's not like we went and made $500,000. You'd say that'd be something that's pretty risky, frankly. This is a small, almost incremental type change. At the end of the day, if rates move up, the yields will be higher, the earnings will be higher. That's going to control most of the change here. But this incremental addition with very little, in our view, very little change to the risk profile for the portfolio will give you a nice, easy advantage.
Is our
Nice
entire
boost.
portfolio always positively affected by the raising of interest rates?
Yeah, the only place where it might not be would be in the, well, if interest rates go up, usually the value of a bond portfolio will go down.
Right.
It's an inverse relationship.
Right.
Mortgages react a little bit differently than a typical treasury. If you follow the rule, rates up, price down, treasuries do that all the time. Mortgages act a little bit differently, and that's because of the prepayment or refinancing risks, and sometimes the change in value is magnified more so because of that. For example, in the first quarter, interest rates move down, makes the market think people are going to refinance their mortgages more readily because they can go out and get a lower rate mortgage, and that pushes the prices down some. When interest rates go up, you say interest rates go up, prices go down. That happens to mortgages too, but it then appears to the market that fewer people will refinance. When fewer people will refinance, the mortgage that probably lasts 7 years on average, lasts 10 or 12. So the loss gets magnified. In the end, what you really want to see happen is a gradual increase in interest rates so that we can get back to a place where the earnings level, that the interest paid, for the portfolio securities, moves up. And it can provide, like it did in the past, a nice boost or benefit to the budget for the borough. In the short run, you'll see some volatility, but over time, what you want is a gradual increase in the yields. Does that help?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, that's all that I prepared for you. We'd be happy to talk, at short or at length, about changes to
Just
portfolio.
for council, so everybody understands, we have a number in our budget that in the beginning of the year, you give us a projection, and that's the number we plug in. It could go up or down by, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, depending on what happens. This new investment isn't going to change that 1% number that we plugged in to. If we were looking at the 330,000, it's not going to go to 500 or 550. So everybody understands, we may pick up 30,000, we could pick up 70,000, which I think is a stretch, but, so everybody understands going in, because, when we get into budget time, everybody's going to say, well, John was here, what happened to the money? Or John was here, and, he promised us we're going to make all this money. Look, it's better than nothing. Anything we get is better than nothing. But it's not a dramatic change. But it is going to be a change in, I think, a benefit to us. I mean, I can't foresee that this investment hurting us at the end of the year. I think it only could help.
I agree.
So, last question for John.
I have a scenario. I don't know if it's a question. Just recently, this council okayed and backed a loan for our sewer authority. Would that be, and I think it was for, Mr. Dillon, what was that number for?
About 3.2 million.
About 3.2 million. Is that something that we would be able to use our money for and then reap the benefit if we lent them the money? What was the rate on that?
That has nothing to do with you.
No, I know, I'm asking.
I don't want to hold him up, he's.
We're not gonna hold him up, he don't have a problem going, he's already here from Harrisburg. What is the rate that we got on that money?
For the sewer,
Yeah.
it was a fixed at 2.070.
So 2.070. Now, now again, this is a scenario I don't know anything about, I'm just thinking along the lines of, this is a municipal or, something that we're using already. If we were to just take the money that we have in there and then kind of just have our authority pay us for it, would that be something that's possible, or is it?
Yeah, that's a whole different area of
Okay.
public finance.
Right.
That I have to confess, it's not my area. I don't want to steer you wrong.
Okay, no, I was just asking, just thinking about it, I figured let me ask.
Yep.
All right, appreciate it.
Does anybody else have any questions for John? Thanks for driving down.
Thank you very much.
Updating us.
Very much.
We'll probably see you again before the end of the year.
Look forward to it.
All right?
Thank
you.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Are you here for the Harriet Tubman? No? Okay. I'll go to public participation. Do you have anything you want to discuss?
No, I'm new to the area. I live at 690 Manchester Street. Just wanted to get to know the community.
Welcome to Bristol.
Thank you.
Okay. Herbie, what do you have?
Couple things. The CO alarms, we're just about out of our supply that we had gotten the original grant. We still have approximately 500 smoke alarms. The federal grant for fire prevention and safety ends this Friday, and we'll be submitting a grant application for additional carbon monoxide alarms. The new ones, which are now have 10-year batteries as opposed to 1-year batteries. We also we received a donation of a Ford gas detection meter and calibration station from Dow Chemical, and that equipment's valued at about $7,500, and that'll be used for hazardous material incidents, gas leaks, those types of things. So we sent them an email thanking them for that $7,500 worth of equipment. That's it.
Anybody have any questions for Herbie? Just so everybody knows, we had an executive session prior to the meeting to discuss personnel with Herbie with the fire positions. Sergeant Morse.
The only thing I have is, last month it was brought up about the ATVs by Councilman Riccio. Since then, several of them were apprehended, and I just wanted to make it clear that they're unregistered vehicles. They do not belong on the sidewalks, the streets, and the alleyways in the borough. And as far as I know, unless any of you know different, that the borough does not permit anybody to ride an unregistered off-road vehicle on any of their properties. I just wanted to let everybody know that tonight. And if I'm wrong, I need to know now, because we've been enforcing it, so.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Sergeant Morse?
I'm sorry. Sorry, Chairman.
I just want to say thank you, because my area was the main area. These guys would go up and down the street, and there's, like I said, every I know of one that was taken off the road. After that, it really went down. And in the last week and a half, it's been very, very minimal. There's hardly nothing, so thank you.
Well, actually, a neighbor in the North Ward stepped up and gave us a little tip, and that helped us, so. Even the neighbors are fed up down there with it, so I want to thank that anonymous caller.
How are we doing with bike patrol? How many bikes do we have? How many people do we have that do bike patrol at one time?
We have 5 bikes.
Okay.
All bikes were sent out and tuned up, new tires this year. And they've been out every week, Betty, except for this past Friday. They were scheduled to go out 3 to 7, but the weather didn't permit that. So we're ready to go. And we have plenty of guys that are available to ride.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This was going to be a question for the mayor, but he's not here. So I received an email, and it was sent to Greg as well and to the mayor. And I would like to read part of it, and I want you to get your opinion on it, okay?
Okay.
I'm writing to you as a concerned citizen who would like information on policies. This is about the Bristol Borough School District, and as a taxpayer and a parent of high school students, there have been bomb threats, assaults on students, verbal threats to teachers, and recently a break-in and robbery of the school. Each time that the police are summoned, they write a report and state it's a school matter. This concerns, frustrates, and confuses me since I previously cited I'm a parent taxpayer, and she goes on to say that she doesn't know what our policies are and she wants to know what can be done about it.
Well, what I can tell you is the past week and a half I've been brought up to speed on some of the activity going on at both of the schools, not only the high school, but the middle school, that was kind of shocked to hear about some of the things that was going on. I've been approached by some parents. I was approached by some students of the grade school on bike patrol about a week and a half ago. We had a couple incidents in the past couple weeks, and I did meet with the representative from the school this past week, and then right after that meeting I met with our sergeants downstairs. I advised the representative from the school that any incident that they think should be addressed by us, they are in our jurisdiction in Bristol Borough, and they should be calling the police, and at the very minimal, a police report should be written about the incident, so that there's a tracking on if there's a problem student. And then I advised all the sergeants, that same afternoon we had a meeting, and that we are to respond to any of their calls, and we are to write, like I said, at the very minimal, or an incident report. If the incident rises above an incident report, whether it's citing that student, contacting the district attorney's office for a juvenile petition, because there's an age, it's either 10 or 11, where you really can't charge. It has to be handled maybe at Judge Peranto's office or community service, depending on what the issue is. And then we just had another issue over the weekend where the officers respond. There was an issue with the school with children going in the school and stealing some items, causing some damage, and their parents were notified, and we are in the process of contacting the district attorney's office because of the ages to see what measures and what charges we can file. So we are handling what is going on.
Here's what I'm upset about. In this email, it seems to state that our police weren't really concerned, and I want you to address that part of it.
Well, the officer that responded over the weekend, and that's probably what this email is about, is one of our newer officers, and the information from the sergeant didn't trickle down to him yet because he was actually off since the meeting. Once he advised the sergeant that was on over the weekend, all this was cleared up. The report was written, and actually the school watched the video and gave us we have even more names of people that were in the school that are going to subsequently be charged. You just can't go into school. I just can't believe that the kids think that they could go into school and steal things and damage the floors over there.
Well, the thing is, it said in the last year that we weren't, and is it because they're not really calling us the way they should? Do you think they should call us on more call us out?
Well,
I mean,
there was an incident a couple weeks ago where a teacher had come in frustrated because apparently there was 5 incidents and that we didn't know about it.
Okay.
And then the day that she came in, and I feel bad that she came in, and she was so frustrated and upset that nothing was being done. I just feel it was a lack of communication. Like I suggested to the representative of the school that they should call. It's like building a house. You want to build a foundation.
Call about everything.
Call us, let us respond up there, make a report, We have ideas of who the troublemakers are, because we're dealing with them on the street.
Right.
But if we don't address it, it just builds them up more, and instead of threatening somebody, maybe they may assault somebody. You don't know. Look what just happened in Wilmington. I just seen it on the news last night.
Yeah, it's horrible.
What a tragedy. And what I want to add to that is that I've just gotten involved in this the past few days, and it's my thought that our children are the most important asset.
Absolutely.
And things to us in this town, and there's 2 schools. And the staff and the faculty that teach our children and deal with them every day should also be the
Feel
most
safe.
important. They should feel safe.
Absolutely.
And I had a mother stop me just recently, and the child, and said that she's so afraid to go to school, and she's an A student because of the bullying that's going on up at the school. And I want to address that, and I made it clear, we're here to call us.
Well, don't you think the parents should be made aware of what's going on and maybe bring them in, and you guys could talk to them and tell them,
Absolutely.
if you have a problem, please contact us. We will help you. You know, this isn't, you're not isolated. You will have help.
It's our jurisdiction. We want to do the job, but you have to call us. It's sad when a bunch of grade schoolers come up to me, and I was with Officer Palmer on a bike, and they were like, "When's Carlos Rivera coming back? We're tired of being bullied in the school." I mean,
Wow.
that
What's
hurts.
being done about it?
What we need to do is we needed to get on the same page with the school district, the police department. Our officers, when they're called, they need to respond up there, and they need to, at the very minimal, do an incident report. If something happens where it needs to be addressed more than an incident report, we need to do it.
But is it because the school is not responding or not notifying the proper channels?
The incident that happened with the teacher, I believe there was 5 incidents before it got to the police department. She was so frustrated and upset, I felt bad.
Well,
And then the officer was also frustrated and upset because she was frustrated and upset. Somebody was dropping the ball. I'm not going to point fingers,
Okay.
but I think if we all work together, we can.
and you feel that that's going to happen now because you did speak to the
I did speak to
representative.
the sergeant, and I did speak to a representative from the school.
If I could just interject, I did receive the same email that Lorraine received. Just a thought, and I certainly do not want to speak on behalf of the school board, and I certainly saw the ordinance that they just passed with the 24-hour bullying, and I agree with that. I think it's a good thing. And there's always, I work in a school, and there's always a gray area between what remains a school matter and what becomes a police matter. And I also fully understand that staffing can be an issue for the borough, but maybe something that we can consider with you, Joe, or with the new chief is daily at my school, we have a police officer that just literally walks through. They get out of their car, they walk through the building, they go out another door, they get in their car, and they go. That's had a very big impact just on kids being like, they mean business. And I'm sure, again, it could be a staffing issue, to say the least, but, and that was something that I know our school board had to have some real communication with the police department. It wasn't just like one day they're like, hey, do you guys mind walking through? They had a real clear understanding of what the parameters were and what they should be looking for and how to communicate with one another. The other thing, and you guys might know this better than I do, we have in our school, we have a former police officer who is paid staff. And he is the liaison between school and the police department. Is there an assigned liaison in the school district to communicate with you guys?
Well, that's usually Carlos when he's here.
Right.
But
Because he does
mean,
he does the DARE program?
he
is
does
that-
the DARE program.
Right.
He has a great relationship.
No, I understand that. I meant from the school district's end, do they have someone on staff
Not
that
that I
is
know of.
dedicated to communicate with you guys?
I don't believe so.
Right, they used to have Mr. Jones, who's, I don't know how long
Right.
it's been since
Right.
he's been
Well,
there.
I was told that they were looking for a grant to get someone. I was just told that today.
So just a thought. Something maybe we can bring up with Joe or, yeah.
I would love to put an officer for a couple hours a day in each school,
Yeah,
you know, just to do or an hour just to walk through.
right.
But I don't know how that would work. I mean, I don't know who.
I mean, I guess that would be something, I wish the mayor was here, but I guess that would be something that the
Yeah,
mayor
we
and the
do
new
have to
chief would
sit down with
communicate
him and
with.
discuss this.
But I know the way they do it basically is, if it's a Monday afternoon at 11 o'clock and there's not much brewing for them, they just You know, they just kind of decide, okay, I'm going to walk through the school at this point in time. They get a call, they jump in their car
More
and they go.
regimented than that. I
Yeah.
mean, to get this issue under control, I think it has to be
Sure.
specific days,
Sure. I mean,
specific times.
I would defer to you guys on that, definitely.
That we would take that recommendation from the school, each school,
Mm-hmm.
on when it would be best, so that there's interaction between the police officer and the kids.
Definitely, because no child should be afraid to go to school.
Yes, we want our kids to feel safe.
Absolutely.
We want our teachers to feel safe.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, we got a new chief starting Wednesday.
Yes,
And I'm sure he's going to be overloaded. The school year's ending.
yes.
We got 4 or 5 weeks left, hopefully, thank God, nothing happens. Jim, why don't you reach out to the president of the school board, tell her that I am willing to meet with her, whoever in the school, with the new chief and our mayor, and a couple people. and
I'd
see if
like
we
to
can-
be
We can
in
get
on that.
something resolved for starting in September of next year.
Definitely. Thank you,
There's
Joe.
ways that
Thanks,
this
Joe.
could be done without costing the taxpayers additional funds.
Thank you.
And Greg had a great idea about walking through, or,
Mm-hmm.
so if they're interested, we're interested in sitting down.
And Joe, I'm sorry, I didn't want to put this on you. I really wanted to talk to
No,
the
that's-
mayor, but, you know, you're here,
That's-
so.
that's fine. I
and
hope
thank-
I answered your
Thank
questions.
you, you did. Thanks a lot.
Any other questions for Sergeant Morris?
Thank you.
I'm going to go first tonight. And the reason I asked about the Sid Taylor thing is because I have an email here that says, "Mr. D. Giuseppe, I'm sorry to inform you of the passing of Sid Taylor, the former president of the African American Historical and Cultural Society of Bucks County. He always spoke highly of you and was grateful for your help in his many endeavors in the borough. Sid passed away on December 8th, and she gave me her phone number and all, and it was his wife's choice. I had a good relationship with Sid, and I helped him and some other council members when they did the Harriet Tubman monument down at the riverfront, and I've been talking with his wife, and I like to honor Sid with some kind of a proclamation, and Mrs. Davis is coming in to speak about this Harriet Tubman thing and about Sid next week. I was confused, I thought it was this week, but, I mean, you talk about a class act and a guy that loved Bristol and did everything he can to do projects and work with the community, so I really want to come up with a nice proclamation to honor him, maybe have his wife here or send it to her, but again, we'll talk to Pauline next week, but I wanted to read this, and the reason it's been the new chief and the holidays and so much going on that, you know, we finally got a chance to get this resolved, so if we could do a proclamation, and we'll talk to Pauline Davis about how we want to handle this. She's coming in to speak next week. Louise. And try to get this resolved, so. Again, I just want everybody to acknowledge that Sid passed away, and I've been in contact with his wife. The other thing while I have the floor is, I want to thank everyone who participated in this Comcast Cares Day Saturday. It was a great event for Bristol Borough. There was over 200 people that showed up. A lot of people from the borough, a lot of employees from Comcast came in to do projects throughout town. The Garden Club, Paul Stillwagon, Donna McCluskey, and Shirley Brady was there raising the bar. Bill Pez and his group were selling flats of flowers and things like that. Also, Paul Goslin Sr. and Jr. and Pat Carlson from Number 3 Firehouse came out, and they washed down all the gateways coming into town. With Jose was running some of that group, cleaning up different areas around town. But it showed when a community comes together how much we could accomplish in a day. So I want to thank everybody that participated in the CARES program, and I want to thank Comcast for choosing Bristol Borough as the site to come in and help out this year. I also want to thank the school board for their involvement. They provided 2 school buses and a van, and they paid for the entire day for their employees to be here. And so I want to thank Chris McHugh for setting it up, and the president of the school board for allowing this and working with Borough Council together. Shows you when groups come together, how much we could accomplish, but it really was a big help to provide buses to move people from the wharf to Jefferson to the ball fields and wherever else they were going. So I want to thank the school board, and I think everybody should know how much they contributed that day by providing the buses and their employees to move these people around. So it was a great day, and hopefully there'll be more news on this shortly. We're going to announce something else on this. Okay. Anybody in the public want to speak on anything before we go to council?
This Wednesday, May the 4th, from 7 a.m. to approximately 11 a.m., Trenton Avenue behind Bristol High School will be closed to all traffic, and this will be the third year that we've done this prom promise mock car crash. All Bristol Borough emergency services will take part in this demonstration: police, fire, EMS, district court, fire, police, Bucks County Emergency Health Services, and emergency management. High school seniors will participate in the staged car crash with entrapment and rescue by our local fire departments. Police will arrest a drunken suspect, follow up with testing at Lower Bucks Hospital, back to a holding cell, and then be arraigned by District Justice Frank Parantu at the school in the afternoon. The Bucks County Rescue Squad will transport severe injured students to Lower Bucks Hospital for emergency treatment. And yes, there will be some victims that won't survive the traumatic event. This entire dramatization is to make our young adults, high school students, cognizant of the drinking and driving, and it can lead to death and severe disability. So to the students, please promise your parents that you won't drink and drive and enjoy this 2016 Bristol High School prom. The second thing is, this Friday, May the 6th, starts the first Friday events on Mill Street, and it goes from May to September, all the first Fridays. Mill Street will be closed to all traffic except for emergency vehicles if they would have to get down the street. There's plenty of activities from Old Route 13 on Mill Street down to the Bristol Waterfront Park. You can check social media through the Bristol Borough Business Association on Facebook for a list of the activities and events. It starts at 5 and ends at 8, and the no parking signs will be from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. There will be food trucks in the 100 block of Mill Street, and the side streets of Pond and Cedar will be open to go into the parking lot, and the side streets of Wood and Canals End Road will be to exit the lot. Also, the other event in May is May 21st, the Grundy Library's 50th anniversary, and it's going to be a how-to demonstration type thing in their lot, their parking lot. Radcliffe Street will be closed from Penn Street to Washington Street. We'll have fire, police, and road signs out there, except the buses will be rerouted, and they will have some things go on inside the Grundy fenced area in the building and on the grass area down along the river. And they will also have food trucks in the 100 block of Darn Street. Since you started talking about the school, I'd like to thank Sergeant Moores, who stepped in when Chief Porter retired. We've had several meetings for these events and also things going on at the school. I've been trying since 2007 to get the school district to upgrade their emergency plan. This is like the third superintendent that I've had to deal with, but Mr. Schaefer stepped up, and because I can't write the plan for the school, I got in touch with Dr. Barry Burton, who is assistant professor at the Philadelphia University. And he had 2 students that were getting their master's degree in emergency medicine and management who came up here for like 15 weeks and sat down with myself, Herb Slack, Sergeant, or Chief Porter when he was here, and we met with several of the key people at the school. We have the plan completed. We have the rough draft, and I'm just waiting till the new police chief gets into place to give it to him so that he'll approve it, and then it'll go back to the school for their solicitor to look at. And once that's finished, then the school will have an updated emergency plan, a basic plan. It's our intention to meet monthly with the school. They have committees at each one of at the elementary and the high school, that we would sit down with them and go over problems, questions, or any situations that they have. Myself, the chiefs, both her and the new chief, and hopefully we can get them going. I understand, I went to the last school board meeting. They said they have adopted a new bullying policy, which they didn't have before, so hopefully that'll help them and the police. And hopefully it's going to get worked out for us. So.
Thank you, Merle.
Thank you.
Just one more thing before we move on. Myself and Councilman Catroci and Merle met with PennDOT the other day at the borough for a meeting about the closure of Green Lane. They have a problem out there that the road on the Amish side is 21 inches higher, Louis, I think, than the...
It's lower.
Lower. They got to raise up. So we discussed this thing, and for them to expedite this, instead of it taking 8 weeks, if not longer, they want to shut it down, not the whole intersection, for starting a Friday around 6 o'clock until Sunday, till Monday morning, let's just say, for rush hour traffic. So my concern and Louis' concern was trucks coming down Route 13 from the diner. We don't want them turning on the Jefferson Avenue, because once them tractor trailers make the turn, either Beaver Street or Jefferson, they're going to get stuck under the bridge. So we're telling them that we want a police car posted, and they'll have to pay for a cop at Route 13 in Beaver. So no trucks, as there'll be a sign, no tractor trailers are permitted. Once that truck turns, Joe, then you guys can pull that truck over immediately. It's going to be a 24-hour-a-day operation. We're just going to have to dedicate somebody, 3 shifts or whatever, right at that intersection, because, again, we don't want these trucks getting stuck, and then we got kids at the playground. If they have to go into the back ball field and turn around, they're not going to get out.
No.
So that was one of our concerns there, and the other part is, you'll cross, Route 13 will be open to go towards
Wawa?
Levittown,
Okay.
from...
It's going to be open both ways, Route
Right.
13, but you just won't be able to
to make the turn.
make the turn on the green lane. You can make a right if you're southbound. You can go out to the township, but the left-hand turn will be closed, and they'll just...
How far down?
It's right at the intersection there from 13 to, he said
The
the
Amish.
the Amish market will be open, they can still get in there.
So
Actually,
you won't make the right on the 13, right, Louis, or you won't make the left, or you won't come across that way?
What's the date?
We don't have the date yet.
Actually, Mr. Marcy attended this meeting because he really thinks if we can, detour that traffic, he can cut a lot of time off of this thing being turned down, because he said they could just go in and, to build up a road, he said that they have to, it's 21 inches, they have to come up at least 17 inches there.
And right now, if you notice, the other side of 13, they're already he said we're going to work on the one side, and we'll get it all ready, so if they shut down on a Friday, what did he say, 6 o'clock?
Friday at 6 o'clock until, he said hopefully they'll be done by Saturday night, but he wants a little buffer there. keep the road closed on Sunday, but he said he's got the blacktop plans to stay open for him.
So does this mean that people won't be able to get on the turnpike from Green
No, they
Lane?
can.
So they won't be
North
able
and
to
south
turn-
is open.
They won't
Okay,
be able to turn from they won't be able to come up Green Lane and get onto 13,
okay.
you know, from the borough.
So they
But
have
they
to,
also won't be able to make any turns into the borough at Green Lane.
okay.
But Beaver Street will be opened, and the only concern there with us is we know that the trucks are gonna try to make that turn.
Sure.
The truck's trying to go to North Wilson Avenue off of Green Lane, and the truck's trying to go to North Radcliffe Street. Which way are they gonna go?
Well, he actually said that they're gonna post this thing down at the Tullytown Bridge also, to try to get the trucks to come in. They have the traffic count. There's not a whole lot of tractor trailers coming into that area on a Saturday,
On weekends.
so he said that hopefully that's why they wanted to.
They originally wanted to put a sign up at the diner to have everybody, we thought they were gonna close the lane at the diner and send everybody down Bath, down Mill, down Ratcliffe, and right Merle, and then out. But we're gonna probably get a lot of traffic through town that weekend, people that wanna go to the Amish market on Saturday or Friday night. So we expect Beaver Street and Jefferson Avenue and Pond to have additional traffic. We just don't want tractor trailers making that, once they make the right, we're done.
Can we have that put on the channel? Because people that live in
Yeah,
Harriman,
once we know, I just wanted council to be
you
aware
know,
of this.
there's a lot of
meeting.
people that go to work, even on the weekends, and I want them to be aware that, Greg and I would like them to be aware that, you know.
So if they're talking to each other on the radio and they're coming in, because we had an issue because the Burlington-Bristol Bridge was closed, so the trucks were coming through town. If they come down off of Otter or Old 13, we're just gonna let them work their way to the other end of town down Pond Street or get down to Ratcliffe Street?
They should go to Ratcliffe Pond, you know.
Right. I'm just worried about some of them tractor trailers making that right off of Old 13 on the mill,
Well, they could go, well, no,
you know?
you're right.
Jim,
If
is
they
this the
can't make
same, is this the same issue of the email that you had sent about a month ago?
This was, but at that time, I thought they were shutting down 13 completely and diverting all the traffic through town. But Mr. Morrissey himself came in with his staff, explained it, and I think the way it's left is 2-3 weeks out. Once they think they're ready to do it, they're going to meet with, again, probably the council president and Merle Winslow and Sergeant Moores and the new chief to work it out. Because they're going to put signs, flashing signs up and down 13, you know, directing traffic.
The original email that we actually spoke about last month, right? Didn't that indicate that they, at least the way it was worded, it indicated almost that we would be the detour?
That's exactly right.
So that's not,
It's been eliminated
that's
now.
not the case.
We're trying to keep, there is going to be a detour, but if you want to turn to get to Green Lane, you're going to have to go through Bristol, coming up to the Amish.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, Greg? There's no other way, you can't turn off at 13 to get to the Amish market.
You can get to, you can go into Wawa.
You go into Wawa.
You can come out Wawa and go down Green Lane.
Right.
But they're gonna have the barricades on the west side of the entrance to Wawa. So when you come out, you can't make a left, you gotta go right down Green Lane, towards the river.
So who are we detouring then? So it's not a detour, it's the Green Lane is the project. It's a matter of how you're getting around that. It's not Route 13 is the issue, we're going to be diverting
They're going
traffic.
to move cars on 13, northbound and southbound. And the cars coming from, like Truman area, 13, can make the right or left. They just can't cross over 13 to come into Bristol.
I guess what I understood as the email was from and I know
There'll
this.
be a detour through town.
So, yeah, so the point of this is not to divert more traffic into Bristol Borough going down Green Lane. The point of this is to get around whatever's going on Green Lane. So it's not as if we're encouraging more traffic there. We're just saying whoever's already on there, here's how you're going to get around it.
And you want them to stay on 13? Yes.
Unless they're trying to get to the Amish.
The Amish market.
Okay.
So they basically can get as far as the Amish market?
They
and then
could
no
keep-
further?
They could keep going down 13 if they want,
No, I mean, if they were to get,
Can't get into the Amish market.
from 13. That intersection,
They're gonna have to come
on
through
that,
town.
they're gonna put the
They're
cars
gonna have to come
on,
from Tullytown,
I
they're
got
gonna
it.
have to come
A
in,
lot less impact than it was originally.
and you know what,
By us closing that down, it's...
they're closed on Sunday anyway, so it'll just be
they're
Saturday.
going to put southbound traffic on
I
northbound
got it.
side.
Okay.
They're gonna work on that side of
Okay.
13.
so I believe you guys that you think this is the best option, but what were the other options?
Well, originally, they were gonna send people through town.
They were gonna flag it. They were gonna send
Everybody through town.
Yeah, but he said,
No, I'm
the
not-
other option is to not close the intersection, use flagmen. He said that would actually take 4, 5, or 6 weekends. This way he's gonna get it done in 2 nights. So for 2 nights, you can't access Green Lane from Route 30. That's it. That's the difference. That's a pretty good trade-off.
Okay, is it all right?
And actually, the people back on Green Lane, Tom Antonelli's,
Right.
Lumbermen's Associates, and Shades of Green, they don't receive a whole lot of deliveries on, I mean, Antonelli's is closed half a day on Saturday, so he's not...
Were they were consulted in this whole thing?
Yes, yeah, and Lumbermen's Associates is closed, so they've really done their research on it. A local, Chris Bunda works for Marcy, he was there at the meeting, he knows the lay of the land, it's good to have somebody there who understands what we're going through in town, so
I was really impressed with Chris. I mean, a kid, you gotta give him
Good guy, I
credit.
should say.
Yeah,
They'll be in touch with the Amish market too.
right. Everybody's gonna be notified of what's going on.
So the Amish market doesn't know yet?
I think they know.
Maybe they'll open another
They know
day.
this is gonna happen, they just
Tuesday.
don't know when it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it won't happen.
These guys mean business.
They'll
They're
have,
not open on Sunday anyway.
That's what I think.
they'll have a chance to open on Tuesday
All
until
right,
Saturday.
so I just wanted to give you, in case something, everybody's aware of what's going on. Lorraine, what do you got?
I also would like to thank Comcast and the Bristol volunteers that did a beautiful job in the borough. I had a family emergency that day, that's why I wasn't able to be there, so, it's a shame, but next year maybe. I want to ask Mr. Dillon a question. Can you tell us what's going on with the permits that Mr. Devine's required to file about the old firehouse?
He did file applications.
Okay. That's it?
They're being reviewed and processed, to my knowledge.
Okay. All right, and then I want to know, I have to bring something up that is about raising the bar, and I'm sorry, I know people don't want to hear about it, but here it is. My husband is chairing a committee, and they're selling 200 tickets for $100 apiece, and to win $10,000. And anybody that needs a ticket, you can contact, go to Great ID by Ann's. You can go to, what are the other places, do you know? You can call Steve, you can...
Allied, right?
Shirley Brady, Allied Electronics. It's for a good cause, and we would appreciate if you guys can, send the word out and have people contact us. And I can't attend the May 9th meeting. My daughter Morgan is having a sports banquet at Albright, and sorry, but I'd rather be there. And I'm finished. That's it.
I just have a few things. Mr. Salerno, can you clarify, it's just something that, I've randomly had a few questions on the same issue about our sound ordinances. They're different in commercial districts, right? As far as time of day, and like for instance, if someone were to have like an outdoor music playing or something of that sort in a commercial district, is that different than in a residential district? Okay, yeah, if you don't mind checking that out. And then I guess also, because our borough is unique, I think obviously Mill Street is a commercial district, but if you could also maybe clarify what those, we have the unique situation where we might have a commercial district literally 20 feet away from a residential. and how we kind of differentiate that. I don't, maybe Sergeant Morris knows about that too, I don't know.
We just enforce the noise ordinance throughout town.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know of any separation at this
Gotcha.
point.
But if we could just get some clarification on that, I'd appreciate that. Also, so I was reading through our packet, and, you know, it's an issue that we bring up once a year, but I didn't know if anyone's thoughts on this have changed, changed recently, or if there's been any, I don't know, conversations about this beyond what we do here on the floor. But I was reading about the Recreational Authority meeting, and, you know, I saw Mr. Dillon gave an honest report, which of course we appreciate, but that is that the rink is not returning what he had hoped or thought it should be returning. And I think Mr. Dillon does a fantastic job in managing that. He has cleaned it up. He's gotten a lot of things, you know, right that were not right there. But it just kind of has been begging the question, I think, for years about when do we get serious about trying to market that rink and sell it. This is in no way, and I know Mr. Dillon knows this, but this is in no way me not having confidence in the job that he can do. He's the manager of this town, and he does 25 different things at once. It's just really a question of, you know, what is the future of that rink hold? And when do we really take a long, hard look at it and say, you know, let's get someone involved that can market this rink and sell it to the right people and do the right things with it. I don't know. You know, it's, like I said, it's something we talk about every year.
The problem I foresee is that we have a manager that's running a rink for basically no
Right.
charge.
Right.
So once he elects not to do that.
Right, I agree.
You're looking at probably $100,000 salary.
I agree 100%. I'm not
Plus
asking.
benefits and all that, so.
Right.
As far as, I don't think it's council's decision on, it's an authority decision, but I think that
It's
there's
the authority
nothing wrong
decision.
with testing the waters, Greg, and saying, let's see what's out there, maybe.
So the decision to sell it would be the authority's decision as well?
Who's makes that decision, Bill? Authority or? I don't know. I mean, can they say we want to market it, or they gotta come to us to market it, or?
I have to look at the agreement between the two.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think, me speaking, I mean, I don't know, I mean, see how everybody else feels, but
The revenues are down across the board, I mean, every category. I think
well, we said a long time ago, we raised taxes dramatically to cover the mortgage on the rink, which is $660,000 a year.
Right.
And we said that we would never do it again.
Right.
To, you know, we're walking on basically thin ice. I mean,
I agree.
You know,
And I am in no way want to turn over management to someone else. That's not at all what I'm saying here.
Sounds like it.
I don't want to pay $100,000 for someone else to manage it. I'm saying, let's get rid of it. I mean.
Right, and I think we've tried that in the past, there's been so many different things that we've done.
Right.
We've hired companies to come in, they haven't worked out.
Right.
We actually asked the county to buy it, and they kind of like said no. But I mean, I don't know.
I think there are commercial realtors out there that would be clamoring at least to give it a shot, right? To say, here's an offer that I have
it's
for
a
you.
double-edged sword, because you got all these hockey clubs and schools that are saying, you're gonna sell the rink, we're gonna go find another place to skate.
Well, with all due respect, how many of them are from Bristol? You know, I mean, I don't want to sound like that.
Revenue, what do you do if they stop coming in? You just,
No, I'm saying sell it. I'm not saying,
Greg,
what's that?
selling it is a lot, yeah, I sat on that board for
Yeah.
many years. We tried officially and
Right.
unofficially to market it. We tried all kind of things, and you hear all kind of things, but if you would talk to anybody in the ice skating business right now.
Right.
When Winter Olympics aren't, you know,
Right.
it
Yeah.
just, it dies.
Maybe it's not
It
best
rises
service in
and
ice skating
die,
rink.
And if the Flyers are, you know, if the Flyers are in the Stanley
Right.
Cup, it adds to it. There's so many things, but, you know, we're just saddled with a debt of $6
That's
million.
still 2025.
And somebody, yeah, if you want to sell it for $2 or $3 million, fine, but you're still going to be saddled with
They're
that.
taking a hit.
Yeah,
Right,
you're
well-
saddled with that bill.
I would think, and I know, I mean, I've been here for the last 5 years when we've had this conversation. We've had the same conversation every time, and that is that it doesn't ever seem to come to fruition. I don't know, since I've been here, how seriously we've actually put it out there, to be honest with you. I mean, for the 5 years that I've been here, I don't think we've ever really said, let's give it a shot, number one. Number two, I agree. hockey is and ice in general, I think, is a tricky thing, but we've got a space there that is gigantic. And, you know, you go up to Southampton and you go to some of these other places where, like, indoor soccer, you know, recreational basketball things, I mean, those places are packed. I just don't know.
Only on the weekends.
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt, you know, I don't
Yeah.
want to interrupt you, but I heard those same arguments. And
Right.
Here's the problem.
Yeah,
They don't rent their space any more than we do.
right.
They just have cheaper buildings, and they don't have to generate ice. We're renting our space at $175 an hour?
More than that.
Three,
$350, I think.
Private time's going for about $350.
Well, I'm sorry, but, and they're out there at, you know, maybe a quarter of that.
Mhm.
So when people say, why don't you convert it over to an indoor basketball court or indoor soccer, we're gonna have the same problem. All summer long, it's gonna sit vacant,
Right.
and you don't generate an income. It's just it was a bad deal. This council got saddled with a, you know.
But also, I guess the question I would have, and maybe you would have more insight into this, is there a time when we say taking a loss is worth it? You know, where we say,
Absolutely.
where we say we will sell it for a discounted price, even knowing we're going to be saddled with maybe a quarter of what we're saddled with annually now.
See what Tony has.
I mean, I'm glad you brought this up. I was going to be talking about the, you know, kind of the same thing, is that the way I see it, and we talked about it, is we're spending $660,000 anyway. And basically, the ice skating rink and the people that are running it, all they're doing is paying their bills. They're not making any profit. That is not coming off the taxpayers' tax bill at all. Zero is. And to me,
In a new way, you mean?
no, at all. It's not. We're still paying $660. The rink's running, but they're only running, they're paying their expenditures. They're not making any profit that they kick back to us to knock down the note.
Right, but to cover that $660, we originally had to raise taxes.
Right, but what I'm saying right now is the rink's being used.
Right.
And I think we can all agree that the people in the borough use it minimally.
Right.
So they're not getting the benefit of the place. To me, what I would like to do, and we talked about this before, and I think that we looked into it, is that you take the ice rink, you just keep it, the ice rink, you keep it packed however long. You get that $3.50 an hour for the ice or whatever that does. That will stay packed. Keep it that way. That other side, sell off everything that's in it, and some of the things that Mr. Dillon was doing is, I get excited about it. There's going to be boxing in there. I would love to go see some fights in there and use that as a different facility. Make it a couple basketball courts. Make it things that we're paying for it anyway. At least let our kids use it, which leads to my next thing. Again, it's about recreation. So I think that we're doing a great job over at the tennis courts with the plants and the vegetable gardens. It looks great. But behind it, we have to remember that was for kids, right? And that basketball court is terrible. The blacktop's coming up. I would like to be able to be part of a group or committee that we take some of this capital improvement money, go in there with those basketball courts. We could do a blacktop, but let's do the finer blacktop that they use on tennis courts so the kids, you know, it's not a safety hazard. Shorten the courts up, reprogram the basketball courts, maybe put a couple, because I know these kids love to play wiffle ball, set up a couple little wiffle ball faux stadiums, and let the kids use it. We're paying for it regardless. And I would like to be, you want to keep me quiet, you want to keep me out of your hair, put me involved in this thing to help these kids in the borough. And then you'll get your answer. You know, we won't even fight. We'll take care of that, and I'll make sure that it gets done. That's how I feel about it.
Frank, what else?
No, I mean, I just think whether it's what I'm saying or what Tony's saying, I just don't know how many more years we're just going to sit here and watch that rink. You know, to Tony's point, if it is drowning us anyway, then maybe we should be making it more user friendly for.
We talked about this. I mean, numerous times saying if the taxpayers are paying the mortgage, why shouldn't we use it?
Right.
We all said that.
Right, I know.
Before Tony even got on council,
Absolutely.
we talked about this.
Yeah.
But the problem is, you have to make a decision. If we do that, we have to get rid of the ice, because one rink can't handle what goes on there from September, when hockey season starts, until like now, when the season's over. So you either have to get out of it, altogether and turn it over to borough residents, but then there's a cost involved. It's not just letting people in free, and like everybody says, let's turn it into basketball. Well, if you have 10 guys on each team, what are they gonna pay you, $10
No, that's not, that's, yeah, no, that's not, that's not how you would do it. That's not how you do it with
But
basketball.
just let me finish.
Okay.
You can't generate enough money with leagues or teams or per hour, you rent a rink for an hour or two, even if you're running 2 games at smaller courts. We looked into all that. We looked into soccer. You gotta come in with a turf now. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars to put in this turf for them to play on. So there has to be an expense somewhere to turn it into whatever. And again, looking at all this, I have no problem with it. But shutting the rink down could be detrimental, even though we're not making anything. There's still money coming back. There are bills being paid. There's nobody that we ever had, before we even got here, that said you could generate enough money a year to pay the mortgage. So it's been a lose-lose from the beginning. Selling it at a discount, I think, is a great idea. But you gotta market the rink for, it could be anything, it could be office space, and you put tax revenue back on the books.
Right.
So...
What about a subdivision of selling one side and not the other? I mean, is that a possibility?
The problem is the way the rink was built, with the stand-up cement panels, it's hard, to put a floor in and everything is almost impossible. So it's...
You mean a regular floor for like an office building?
Yeah, for people that...
We wanted the school to take it, when they wanted to build the school.
We even talked to the school saying, you take it, it's a debt to the borough. So we offered the school to take the rink. We even said if we had to put a bridge over Beaver Street to get, and all the fields and everything would be there. But they didn't want it either, so, I don't know, it's something that we could discuss. I mean, nothing's ever off the table.
Sure, and nothing's ever, there's never a neat...
But if you want to recommend to the authority, at their next meeting to start discussing this, I don't think anybody's against it.
Yeah, I just would like us, and I know we've gone through every scenario, and I know that, and I believe it, and I've sat here every year, and you look at that budget, and you look at that rink, and we all know it, it's the elephant in the middle of the room of what's costing us so much money. But every year we do talk about it. I just don't know that, at least since I've been here, that we've ever really said, let's at least get a real opinion on what this, not real that our opinions aren't real, I mean an expert that can say, we can do this, you can do that, or you can't do that.
Right.
And they might come back and say it is absolutely 100% undoable, even if you sold it at a 60% loss. And, but I think it might be worth it, at least it might be time for us to evaluate that. And I'm not poo-pooing what Tony's saying either. I mean, if it ends up being that one side of that is for recreation for the borough, again, I know that's going to be a cost, but I'd just like us to look at that. And
yeah, I mean, a couple things. The first thing I want to talk about is the idea of we have 8 years, 9 years left to pay it off. So if we sell it for a loss, that building's probably worth $2 million.
Yeah.
We owe 6.5 or whatever that number is. So we're going to pay. We're going to take cut the bleeding now.
Right.
But then in 9 years, we're still paying for the majority of it. And then when it's paid off, it could be an asset to the borough, and we can use it for those things that Mr. Dillon's doing now. The boxing, you have all kinds of things that you could do there. You know what I mean? With those facilities. And to me, I'm not sure if that it's not viable to have it one as an ice skating rink that goes full tilt whenever. It will be packed. It will be whatever it is. But I'm not an expert in hockey. But I would like to sit down with somebody who is an expert to see if that's plausible, to run that as an ice skating rink, do the best it can. The other side, and basketball is different. You're thinking about basketball in terms of inviting people over to play. Basketball is so big right now with AAU. You're getting 400 teams that come to an area and play basketball. So if you have 3 or 4 courts that they're running these huge tournaments, not only are you doing things in the borough, in that facility, where you're bringing in income, the surrounding areas, it's not like hockey. Basketball people are more like Bristol people. They're not hockey people. They're going to use the stuff that's in the borough. They're going to get pizza. They're going to eat. They're going to go look around. They're going to buy wine. They're going to get beer. That's what they're going to do. So you're going to attract more people there that are outside. And again, all the things that we're talking about, raising the bar, what we're doing in the borough, you're going to have more people looking in this borough than you ever did at any of those other ones, because it's going to be in the middle of the borough. It's not going to be just hitting Mill Street down at the river or going down the other side. You're coming into the borough, and you will see the borough at its finest. That's how I see it. And I think that if we get a committee that is...
I'll form a committee.
Okay. All right.
So, Mr. Jones, that is right, 9 years, this will be, we will be free and clear
Of the debt service.
of the debt service. So what won't we be free and clear of in 9 years? Right, so just the annual bills. I mean.
Let me just say
Yeah, please do.
a couple minor comments.
I'm sure they're more than minor.
We're just projecting that the end of this year's budget for the rink, which it's not a calendar year, it's July 1st through June 30th. We feel we're not going to make, the balance is not going to be as great as we had anticipated, and that's because some of the teams have just disbanded. But the last 3 or 4 years, that rink has contributed to the general fund to help this borough, keep the taxes down. So I think 1 year it was 60,000, and the last couple of years it's been 50,000. So that's a besides meeting the expenses, they are transferring money into the general fund to meet the operations of the general fund. We are dealing with 2 college teams that may be coming into the...
Yeah, I read that.
So hopefully we didn't put their names in there.
I think you did, actually.
Well, we're working on that, so, but, I'm not saying, don't sell it or whatever, but I think it's operating well, and we're getting bites on college teams now. That's how well I think the staff is working over there, so, and the place is, has probably the best place going.
And that includes both?
I don't play hockey.
No, I got you. That includes both rinks, though, as far as?
Yeah. We looked at, there's been studies done by the authority to turn it over into turf fields. And we thought 1 rink and 1 turf, and the study said, no, you got to go either 2 rinks, ice rinks, or 2 turf fields. That was the study there. We did bring an outside firm that sells ice rinks all throughout the country. And, we were looking at that time like about if we got $1 million, they said you'd be lucky, because that's how bad the market is for that type of activity. And just like Mr. DiGiuseppe mentioned, the way that thing is built, you're not going to be able to have offices or anything.
We brought the designer
You got
in.
slabs, there's slab walls, and, we had to bolt a couple of them up together, had to bring in outside experts about a year or so ago to bolt a couple of these walls in, so.
That were buckling. We talked to the architect that designed the rinks, to see if he could cut windows in, to see we looked at every possibility to look at. I think Grundy Foundation paid, $100,000 at one time for a study?
They did,
They spend a ton of money for...
they paid some money to help operate it for
Right, and there was a study done, I think, at their expense too. But...
And I guess my thing is then, when was all of that done? Because...
Before you got...
Right, that's what I mean. I'm just saying, maybe it's time to take a fresh look, is all I'm saying. Yeah, just take a look.
Why don't we work at 2 angles? 1, Jim will talk to the authority. 2, I'll form a committee with Tony and probably Louis, since he was on the committee, to explore, or you have somebody you want to bring in, we'll meet with them. Hey,
Okay. That's all I have.
could be done, could be done.
Yep.
What do you got, Tony?
We are entering into contracts now with, teams and all for next year.
Sure.
So
Hey, if we can make
we're
it,
locked in.
if we can make it
At
work.
least
We're
1
locked
year,
in.
Yeah.
I'm mentioning that to you.
And I don't want to jeopardize any of
To
that.
be able to transfer money into the general fund.
Gotcha.
even though we are going down a little bit this year.
Okay, what I had was, it was basically just the rec stuff that I talked about. And on the one page on that budget, Mr. Dillon, the Grundy Rec budget, I have page 1 of 4, I'm missing 2 of 4 and 4 of 4. Mine goes from 1 of 4 to 3 of 4. I don't know if anybody else has it.
I'll email you in the morning.
No problem.
What else you got, Tim?
I mean, basically, that's all I wanted to talk about, was the same thing that Greg happened to bring up, and, you know, the idea of the basketball courts that we're using, behind the
We'll
plan.
talk about all that.
All right, that's all I got.
Thanks, Ralph. Earlier in the
Here's
evening, I
mine.
gave Mr.
I don't
Dillon
know
a
if
small
it's in
list
there or
of jobs that need to be done in the North Ward, some potholes and
Same?
some lights out and things like that. And I would also like to pay a compliment to the North Ward Judge of Elections, Bridget Callahan, and her staff for a fine job on Election Day of the primaries. Year in and year out, under Bridget's leadership, the staff is competent. The voting process is always pleasant and friendly. And I think the North Ward's residents are lucky to have someone like Bridget running that program. I just want to give her some kudos on that, and I think she does a great job. That's all I got.
Tony?
Yes, Mr. Dillon, any word on the trash along Route 13, the Sunoco station, and that strip?
That's still on the agenda.
It's still on there? Okay.
I apologize.
No problem. And I know Ms. Trinnell, when she was a council person, she brought up numerous times in the former Klein property on Wood and Market Street. Anything going on with that? The 100 block of Wood Street?
We just got a letter from our insurance attorney today, from our insurance attorney, that the fellow that owns it, he's a lawyer, okay? He's probably spent $200,000-$300,000 of his own time and all suing the borough and everybody else. And I don't want to play lawyer, so I'll defer to Mr. Salerno shortly. But we got a letter from the clerk of the Supreme Court of the United States in D.C. saying, we won. The one today. So it's just amazing, you know? I mean,
Mr.
this guy
Salerno
just,
argued before the Supreme Court?
I mean, he tried to appeal to the Supreme Court, but go ahead, Bill, I'm sorry.
There are actually several matters that we've been involved in. The one with the Supreme Court was actually a civil rights action he filed. That was denied by the district court twice. It was appealed to the Third Circuit, who said they wouldn't hear it. He appealed that, not appealed it, he petitioned the Supreme Court of the United States to hear it, and of course they said they're not going to hear it. So the circuit court's dismissal of his suit stands. So there's no civil rights suit. He also had filed an appeal to our zoning denial, which he went to the Commonwealth Court, and that was denied. Of most importance, he had appealed the borough's order that he demolished the building, and he appealed that to the Board of Construction Board of Appeals, which upheld John Miller's decision. He appealed that to Common Pleas Court. For some reason, the judge sat on that for 2 years, and recently the judge basically said, I want to send it back to the Board of Appeals, after this is now going on 8 years.
Wow.
So I think what's going to happen, because so much time has gone by, we're probably going to have our engineer look at the building again. And if our engineer decides that the building needs to come down, we'll start the process again. But he's basically stretched this out in 3 different lawsuits. Incredible. Fortunately, our insurance has covered this, hasn't cost us anything in terms of, hiring it to defend this. So that's where we are. Unfortunately, we're kind of back to square one. And we've offered for him, if he were to come in and talk to the borough about something reasonable, about taking that down and putting something reasonable there, we certainly would talk to him. But he still insists that he wants 3 apartments upstairs and 2 commercial downstairs when he has 5 parking spaces. Obviously, it doesn't work. But he's just, he's one of these people who just appeal, and appeal, because it's not, he's not paying anybody to do that. But that's where we stand.
Yeah, I walk by there all the time, and just the sidewalk's a huge
Yeah.
trip hazard there, and it's just, you get
Well,
a tree
that's-
growing out the roof. Yeah.
Those kind of things we've cited him for.
Okay.
We can still cite him for hazards on the sidewalk, weeds. But, basically, he's saying, listen, it's stabilized, it's been there 8 years, I don't need to take it down. So I think it's time we get an engineer to go in there again and take a fresh look at it. And if we feel it needs to come down, then we'll start the process again. So.
Thank you. Is there any, is there any type of ordinance for, I've gotten complaints along the West Ward. People, I guess untidy, or accumulation of porches, stuff, I'm talking about bicycles and furniture, so, just, I have some pictures I can show. Indoor furniture.
There were a lot of discussions about that.
But I've got a lot of calls the last couple of weeks, and, I've visited some people's houses, and, I understand what they're, looking at, and, it's, some guy has a nice house, and across the street, he has, the front and the back of the house are just, you can't even make your way onto the porch.
Tony, they are not allowed to have indoor furniture outside.
That I know.
Yes.
Okay.
Just making sure.
But, is there anything we can,
I mean, you gotta talk to John. One thing I could tell you about our inspection department, they know what's going on, they know the rules, and we don't usually lose in court. So, I mean, BIU and John does an outstanding job, and it's a fair process they keep for everybody, and if that stuff can't be on the porch, it won't be there long, so. I would talk to them, give them the addresses, and send them out, they'll know.
I'll shoot an email
Shoot
tomorrow.
John an email, or Jim, and, take him 5 minutes to ride by there, he'll know. But we got a great inspection department who's very,
No, I know.
very good at what they do, and they document everything.
And also, if we get, this time of year, the guys will be out painting lines, they can paint the lines along, it looks like the end of like Locust Street, right down where we took down that tree, Linden Street, looks like those curves haven't been painted in some, quite a few years.
They did some this weekend in the borough, but they did do them Saturday, so I guess they just didn't get to those
There
yet.
was supposed to be a crew of 40
Yeah.
people painting curbs, there was only 4, I think,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, right along, I don't know what that small street is, it runs parallel with Otter, but back on the Linden and Locust, there's no paint on the curbs whatsoever.
Yeah, on Bath.
I would just send Jim an email.
And the last thing is, I've also gotten some phone calls regarding the no parking signs in front of Harris Fuels. They also painted the yellow line. The yellow line's painted. I don't know if we painted it or if they painted it, but I've gotten phone calls that there's signs in buckets, and it says no parking, customer parking only, something to that effect, 8 to 5. People have parked there, and then they've had, I guess at some point in time, there must have been some confrontation about, somebody come out and said you can't park there, it's for customers only, but that is a residential area. So
I think we make concessions for businesses. So I think that sign 8 to 5 is for people that want to park there, because if not, how are they going to get people in and out? So we would either have to pass, if you want to do it, put it as an ordinance, I don't know how we would do it.
Because they have one in front of Mazante's too, it's.
They got them all over.
Yeah.
So,
Certain
their dogs
businesses.
needed one for parking in front of her place, so, I mean, I think that if it's an issue with the residents there, if the borough has to pass a legitimate ordinance that says no parking, we have to respect their business. So if they have people going in from 8 to 5, and there's like, in front of, the barber shop in Annabelle. We put a sign up so people can run in and do pick-up, takeout. So we try to accommodate the banks and everybody. So however you want to deal with it, I mean, I have no problem to take it away and give them nothing, and then you go there to pay an oil bill, or you go there for something, there's nowhere to park. It's really not fair to them. So that's something you and Benny could...
It's just like throughout town, we got the whole parking issue, you know, and...
Yeah, it's all over town.
You know, and in the
And
winter
it's
time...
8 to 5, so people, you know, come home from work, they can park there.
Okay. I think, yeah, somebody had, I guess, because the signs are kind of movable, I guess, they're in like a 5-gallon pail in cement, and sometimes they're close, and I guess what happened, somebody's car, it hit it, the mirror hit it, and they moved it back, and then somebody came outside, thought they were just taking the sign away, and they got into a confrontation, so...
As long as you guys figure out, you know, again, talk, you and Betty, excuse me, come up with a plan for there, but I don't think we could just take it away and say that, you know, we don't care.
Somebody parks there, they're not gonna get ticketed, right? It's not enforceable.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't think it is.
we do have an ordinance that allows for restricted parking, and Mr. Dillon and I have discussed this in the last couple of months. That it's kind of a hodgepodge right now. What I'm going to suggest is we look at these areas, and I'm not familiar with the history of this one, is that there are certain areas, like in front of banks or wherever, that during business hours, we want limited parking, 15 minutes or whatever. I think what's not clear now is that once those hours are over, anybody can park there. So I think the yellow line is a little misleading, because people think I can't park there. What it is between 9 and 5, it's 15-minute parking.
But does somebody, the person there say, well, it's a yellow line, why had the signs? Because the yellow line, you can never park there. So why can you park there?
That's what's it's not only there, it's misleading. Okay. I think we need to, under the ordinances, find these restricted areas, the times, and not have the yellow line. So just say from 5 to 9, it's 15-minute parking. If somebody parks there for 3 hours, they could be ticketed. After 5 o'clock, anybody could park there. So maybe get rid of the yellow lines, because people think you can't park there at any time.
Right.
That's something I think maybe with Louis, with this parking committee, and I know you want to sit on it, Tony. It's another thing you guys could discuss. I brought up several months ago about this Rackle Street, that people have parking permits to park there free. And I have no problem with people that own a home there and live there. They should be able to park. We don't put money in to park in front of our house. But I do have a problem with people that own a business that get these stickers that park there when they shouldn't be able to park there. The people on Mill Street don't get stickers that own stores on Mill Street. So why is it that section of Rackle Street, people they can park there anytime they want, or they give them to people that work for them. So that's another thing I think, you know, either we should charge them an X amount of dollars a month for that sticker, or they go outside and put money in a meter, but that's not what the meter's intended for. It's intended to leave a space open for somebody that wants to run into that store or that business to do something. So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at, and I think that's what Louis has form a committee and really look at the overall picture of what's going on in town. And like I said, you want to serve on that committee, I have no problem with
that. That's all I have, thank you.
Louis, what do you have?
Saturday, my wife hosted a fundraiser for Friends of Silver Lake Nature Center at my home. And I just want to thank all the people who supported that. But I especially want to point out how nice it is in town when you get, the sweeper went by on Thursday. And Dave Waldron, I happened to be upstairs, I was looking out my window when I heard him coming because I moved my car already. Just want to make sure, hopefully, that everybody was out of the way. But I'm watching him, and he really, like he saw the tent up, he knows, I think he was talking to my wife earlier that week. He really took his time, he almost, he manicured it with the sweeper, backed up a little where it didn't pick it up and went through again. And I think it's just commendable that we have these kind of employees that go out of their way to make the town look good. Sometimes, somebody gets a ticket, they're hiring the sweeper guy, and it's not really his fault. But here it is, he's gone out of his way to do something good, and I just wanted to wanted to thank him. I thank Jim and George and all the borough crew because they really do a great job. The other thing, over the weekend, when I listened to the show about the new money, they were talking about the Harriet Tubman, and I was saying, this is an opportunity. We have the Harriet Tubman Memorial. Here she's going to be put on currency. And I don't know if a lot of people realize that Harriet Tubman was related to the Ross family here in town.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Ross was a very good friend of mine. Told me about the lineage there, and I think, this is the kind of stuff that more people should be aware of. And Sam was Sid Taylor's uncle, as well as Pauline Davis's brother, and they had an old Bristol family, great people, and I think as this thing goes on with Harriet Tubman, we should push to make more Bucks Countyans aware of the heritage we have here.
Yeah, I agree. I do it with my kids in school, and I'm proud that I know that she has lineage in Bristol Borough. It's crazy. And she's going to be on a $20 bill. So I agree with you. 100%.
This is really a great, it's really an honor for our town. And third thing is, I applaud Tony for wanting to get on that recreation, and focusing on that. And although I'm not a big recreation, I did serve on the Grundy, and I would help on that. But I'd like to see you run with that. And just, the borough has, when I tell you, we've spent a lot of time on that rink, and it's an albatross. The way I think it should be done is the county should really find a way to fund that. Because when we presented it to the county before, Denise Catani was the manager there, and they compiled a whole program. All but 2 communities in Bucks County use that rink. We're talking about people in Quakertown, and one of the problems today is, with the economy, especially, in the lower end, we don't have the steel mills anymore. We don't have the room. So some of these people don't have the monies to have these hockey teams like they used to. The township, the school had it, Egan had it. Even in times back, they even had it consolidated. I think they split them back up again, but just to stay alive, because there's not many people. It's an expensive sport. But I think it behooves us to go back to the county too to see if there's some help that they could give us to maintain it. Because if we close that rink down, believe me, nobody's going to build a rink today. And the rinks, when you talk to other people, this rink is really state-of-the-art compared to other rinks out there. A lot of them are just metal buildings, pole barns, and that's it. But, this is a really a classy facility. It's just, borough shouldn't be in recreation, and borough shouldn't be in business. Not necessarily recreation, but they shouldn't be. This is why you can't operate these things today. So I applaud you. You can run with it, and I'll help you with the rink whatever I can.
Anything else, Lloyd?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Eddie?
I also just want to say thank you to Comcast Cares. It was a wonderful day. The weather, held out. Thank you to everyone in the borough that helped and volunteered their time. We had kids in wagons, we had young people, we had older people. It just showed how much the community wanted to make sure that this went through. And I also want to thank Donna McCluskey and the Garden Club for the trees that they planted along the old Route 13. That helps spruce that area up. We try so hard with Roman Halls, them trying to clean up the tracks and everything, and even though they don't cooperate, the trees being planted there is definitely a plus. The gateways look great. They've been cleaned up. Their flowers were planted. The only issue I have is I'm still upset about Luke Oil. It's starting to look like the junkyard. More and more cars are there. It's not changing. It's dirty. It's disgusting. You can't come into town and look at this beautiful gateway and then at the same time look at this disgusting, whatever you want to call it, because it's definitely not a gas station. So I want to stay on top of that. I also, the diner has a dumpster in front, to the left of it, or the left of Bear Street, but in front of it. It's for people to bring in things that they want to contribute or give away, like clothing and stuff like that. The problem I'm having with the dumpster is that once it's full, people are just throwing everything in front of it. So now we have a dumpster full and everything outside of it, and if it's pouring or raining or whatever, it's all going to get ruined anyway. So I don't know if the diner, I mean, if they want to have that there, can't they put it in the back where nobody would see it anyway? Or, you know, can they stay on top of it? It's dirty, it's disgusting. I mean, who's going to take that stuff and give it to anybody anyway? It's getting ruined. But that's, you know, I like when I come into town and I see that gateway, and at the same time, I just want to scream at everybody, like, you can't keep trying to build something up if people are bringing it down. I just want to stay on top of that. But again, thank you. I mean, everybody that volunteered Saturday, they were selling flowers. I mean, they brought breakfast for them, they brought lunch for them. I've never seen so many people, and it just was great to see Comcast come in. The borough employees worked, the crew worked for free. They weren't working on the clock, and they helped all over town. And I think, I mean, that's really great to see them come together and do all that for us.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Did you got anything, Billy? Nothing. Just two more things real quick. Again, it was brought up, Friday is First Friday. It was brought up earlier, so if everybody comes out and supports that. And the last thing is, there is going to be a boxing match at the rink that I was contacted by Louis Galcerana, whose son is a boxer, and they had an event at St. Anne's Club last summer, but they got a new promoter and they got a whole new program that they're trying to promote. So when we met with them, we signed a one-fight event. Now, the borough's not really getting anything for this. We're going to keep the concessions, you know, whatever we can sell. I don't think it's going to be a positive, major moneymaker for the borough. So we told them we would do one event, and then we would renegotiate a deal after that if it's successful, because they don't know what they can pay. So it's something that, you know, we're exploring. We don't know if it's going to be a positive thing, a negative thing, but we're willing to give it a shot. But
When is it, Ralph?
it's June 4th, and there's going to be so many fights that night, and it's going to be nice. They're hoping to get 1,500 to 2,000 people
That'd be good.
into this event. Now, that's what the promoters are saying. So, you know,
That's also, that's the Raising the
June
Bar event
4th.
then. June
and they're
4th.
meeting, Merle is meeting with them to how we're going to work, you know, the parking and everything else that's involved. So they'll know because they're pre-selling tickets, so they'll have an idea how many people.
How much are the tickets?
I have no idea. All that stuff hasn't been worked out yet. Matter of fact, I'm meeting with them again this week. I was supposed to meet with them last week, but I just didn't have time, so. Again, it's something we'll explore, see what happens. All right, anybody have anything else? Merle?
Can we get Matt maybe to put a thing on the channel about the Tom Thomas at the high school? It happened this Wednesday, and we get a lot of county will be calls, we did last year. People don't know what's going on up there and the roads closed and everything.
Oh, they got scared.
Maybe we could put a notice out just to,
Oh, Facebook too. Great.
Yeah, I think, well, talk to Matt, whatever you want to do. I don't think anybody's got any problem with putting something on the channel. Merle, let them know what you want, and maybe everybody could put it on Facebook to let them know what's going on. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second by Eddie, second by Tony.